Bachmann's Class 37s have been the definitive incarnations of this locomotive for me since I returned to the hobby 10 years ago. So I met Accurascale's Class 37 announcement with mixed emotions. Would the Accurascale version win me over? And how would I feel about my Bachmann Class 37 fleet if it did? It's time to take a closer look. So thanks for joining today's review. We'll kick off with the usual unboxing, and then we'll get into our close-up and 360 views. Then go through a short running session with the model before getting into our summary, scoring and final recommendation. Okay, let's get underway. Okay, so it's here at last, my first Class 37 from Accurascale. This is the 37409 Lord Hinton, and it comes in the British Rail blue large logo livery. So we're going to take a look at this, take it out of the box and take a look at it. It's the first, let's say, 37 that I have, and it comes in the standard packaging from Accurascale, which is good, and comes with documentation pack, which is a decent documentation pack. You've got the summary function list for the DCC sound control. This is the sound fitted version I've got here, so we'll be playing with that later on, and talks about some of the various things, the what's controlling the lights, etc. So up to 14 aux controls on this, my goodness. So that's going to be interesting. So you certainly need an appropriate controller for that. We've got the instructions, which look pretty good. That's a nice breakout of parts. Now I won't be taking off the body today, as hopefully I don't need to, because it's got everything fitted. Got the information there, and then detail of fitting the detailing kit onto the front, and then fitting your drivers. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then you've got this nice manual, the typical manuals that they seem to be giving with most of these locomotives, which is nice. It gives a history and brings you through, the 37/4, which this is a refurbished version of the 37. And so that's a nice little booklet for some bedtime reading there. And then this little label here in the kind of warning label format, talking to you about the dip switches that are located on the blanking plate, or under the decoder blanking plate. So again, may or may not need to take a look at those. We'll look at that later on. So let's get into the model itself. And the packaging is pretty standard. If you're familiar with the Accurascale, it comes in this really deep, well protected box, and it really is premium level of packaging, really nice and thick foam all around. So very, very good. And then you get the typical ice cube packaging in between, and you've got the extra supports here just to hold everything in place. So I think this is they do a good job of their packaging from Accurascale, so no complaints there. So this does look like a really nice model, and I'm just going to take him out now. So he's got that nice little film protecting him. He's got the little radio mast that's front and back. Detailed horns as well. They look like quite detailed. We do have a detailing kit, so let's take a quick look at that. And so it does have the couplers on both ends, so they're pre-fitted like that. So I'll probably be taking one of those off. And it comes with these snow plows in here, so it'll be interesting to see how those fit on actually. So I'll figure that out, and we'll see those, hopefully one of those in the running session. And they're the little detailing parts I talked about fitting in there as well. There's no alternative couplers or anything like that, so it's the ones you get on it that are pre-fitted, and so we'll be taking one of those off. Okay, we'll figure out the snowplow fitting later on, and we'll hopefully see that in the running session. So good weight in the model, I guess, as you'd expect from an Accurascale model like this. And it's a very nice looking model indeed. And I did have a roughly similar version of this from Bachmann, not exactly this particular locomotive number, but a large logo 37, and it was a nice model, but I have to say this model is significantly better than it. It's really nice detail there. You can see the kick plates is really nice. The metalwork there looks really nice, and the handrails, metal handrails, are really good. The glazing is crisp. There's a lot of detail and a lot of depth on the bogies. You can see them, and you can see the way it's kind of like it is three-dimensional. As I say, there's depth in there for the different springs, etc., and they're called out in paint as well. So those bogies are very nice. So I really do like the look of those. Some lovely detail there. Different gauges and filler pipes, etc. Nice detail around the front. Obviously, there's detail to be added. You can see the buffer being there is waiting for you to add detail. And obviously, you would probably be only adding that on one end in most cases. So overall, it feels there's a nice heft in the model, as I would kind of expect from an Accurascale 37. But I love an awful lot of nice detail. I think I'm really looking forward to doing the close-up views on this now, because it's that kind of model. I mean, this is a class apart, and I guess we'll get into the summary. You know, this is really the top class level of model. It's a credit to Accurascale. It's in line with their other models. A little bit of oil, excess oil there. We'll clean that up. And you know, as I said, this is the kind of what you expect from a model like this, and it's not at a crazy price as well. So, you know, these are cheaper than their equivalents from Bachmann, for example, and they're retooled 37s, and they're obviously getting discounted now. So you can probably pick them up for like this kind of a price now at a discounted level. But the original RRP, if you pre-order them, you would have been paying significantly more. So it's good that Accurascale, you don't tend to get these discounted from the retailers, but at least the recommended retail price is a reasonable price, and you get a very nice model for it. I'm just looking into the cab area there as well. A lot of nice detail in the cab. You know, it's above average for sure. It's not. I won't use the term average. This is at it's at the top end of the market, I would say, in terms of the sort of detail you're getting on these models, without necessarily paying the highest price for it, which is good. So I think Accurascale hit a nice balance there, and I guess it's got a kind of a robust feel to it as well. It doesn't feel like there's going to be pieces falling off all over the place. So I would hope that I didn't get anything loose in the box, for example. I don't think I can see that happening with this model. Some nice spring buffers on both ends with the kind of nice metal and black. So they are nice. So we'll need to do the close-up view on this to really get a full appreciation for it. But just looking at it here, I'm really pleased. I think this looks like a really nice model. I'm very pleased to get it, and I'm looking forward to getting it out on the track and seeing how it performs. Nice bit of weight in there, and I would hope this would be performing as good as it looks. Okay, so that's the unboxing for this model. So far so good. It looks really nice. We'll do the close-ups now, and as I said, we'll get this onto the track and see how she runs and see how she sounds as well. It's going to be interesting, given this is a sound-fitted model. Okay, let's go to the close-ups. Okay, we're going to start here at the front of the locomotive. And I think you can see the really nice detail there. And one of the things I really want to call out is the kick plates there on the door, which are kind of metal, and you can see the lovely patterns on them. as well as the really nice handrails and the latch on the door as well. Very nice bogies there as well. Going along the bottom, the overall livery is pretty well impeccably applied. The tanks underneath the body there, all the sort of labelling, panelling, and vents you can see there, all nice detail. The kind of 3D view on those bogies. And again, you got the rear end of the locomotive. Again, very nicely done, very nice glazing, and very nice in the cab. We'll talk about the cab a bit more in the 360 view that's going to come up. I also have the snowplows added here, and they've been added to the rear of the couplers, so you can actually have the couplers and the snowplows in place at the one time, which is nice. Now there are separate snowplows which you can fit to the buffer beam, so they'll actually be coming off the body rather than coming off the coupler, so that some people may wish to take that approach, in which case you won't be able to have a coupler coinciding with those. So here we got the nice view, which is showing us the roof as well. We've got nice horns, as we kind of saw earlier. The nice fan at the back there. And overall, a very clean model, very well executed. No issues at all, like with detail falling off or anything like that. I know we've had these on previous highly detailed models, and it actually does have quite a robust feel to it. Those bogies feel a bit more robust than, say, the Deltic bogies, for example. Even though this is a very heavy locomotive coming in at 690, that is a heavy locomotive by any standards. The cab area is particularly nice, and we will look at some photographs of that a little bit later on. Okay, let's get into the running session. So there is a full version of this with sound at full volume. So starting from a standing start here, and we have turned down the sound. It is a really smooth runner, and it was smooth out of the box, I guess, even before it was run in. As you run it in, you will find that the current consumption stabilizes. So when you start running it first, you'll see the current numbers can be all over the place, 280 milliamps, that kind of thing, dropping down to 150. And then eventually it does stabilize at that kind of 180, 190 milliamps at the maximum power level. So we could probably just catch a glimpse of the lights there in the driver's panel. You probably just saw them, and we'll look at a photograph of those later on. We're speeding up slowly here, and it's super smooth. I did a lot of running on this on the Radius 2 circuit first, and then moved to the Radius 3 with the coaches. And it was super smooth on both, and no issues over any of my point work whatsoever. Not an absolute hitch or glitch with this. We're running with a relatively small rake here of these Hornby coaches in the Direct Rail Services livery, which is in keeping with this locomotive. You'll see them commonly pulling this kind of a coach rake. And as I said, overall it was really, really smooth, and I can't flaw it. And it is a heavy locomotive, so I didn't do any major load testing on it, but I would expect that you would get some really good performance either on inclines or with a heavy load. Just coming into a stop now, and again, it's just impeccably smooth, fantastic levels of control and responsiveness, and a really smooth stop, and overall a really pleasant running experience. Okay, let's get into our summary. So for this review, we've been looking at the Accurascale Class 37/4, 37409 Lord Hinton in the BR large logo livery, and this is refurbished in real life. It comes with a high quality 5-pole motor with twin flywheels, and it also has a dual bogie drive and all-wheel pickup, as you'd expect, and it does come with a Stay Alive power pack, and we last for maybe about 10 to 15 seconds. Runs a minimum radius 2 curves, but it does support regauging to a larger gauge, an EM or P4, so that could be of interest to some modelers. It's got NEM pockets either end with tension lock couplers pre-fitted, and it does have 2 types of snowplow, so that's good news. So you've got one type which you can just connect to the rear of the tension lock coupler, which is what I've done, and which you've seen in any of the photographs or in the running session. Or you can actually connect it, the snowplows, to the buffer beam, to essentially to the main body, so you can get a more realistic look with that. So if you're adding all of the other detail as well. So I think that's a pretty nice to have those two options. Other features are the metal sprung buffers and the metal kick plates, which I think are particularly nice. And there's a detailing kit as well. The sound version has a 21-pin Loxon 5 decoder and dual speakers, a bass and a high-tone speaker. And the lighting is really comprehensive. You've got directional headlights, cab light, engine bay lighting, and the driver console lighting. The top scale speed I tested was 85 miles an hour at 100% power, and that was drawing 190 milliamps peak current, and that was after having been fully run in. Unboxed weight is a heavy 692 grams, and that really does make this one of the heavier locomotives that I own and that you can purchase. And then the selling price, these are recommended retail prices and are what you will pay for them from all retailers as well as Accurascale. The $169.99 RRP for the DCC Ready, or $259.99 for the sound version. So let's get into the scoring. First thing is the running performance. And I'm giving that a 10 out of 10. It was flawless, and it was flawless straight out of the box. So, you know, some locomotives you do need to run them in a little bit before they kind of smooth out, or they might be making bits of noises, or they might be a little bit rough out of the box. This was just smooth and quiet, responsive out of the box. No issues on point work, no issues on anything, and I really did find it extremely good. And given that sort of weight that you're talking about, that's going to give you, you know, good incline performance and good pulling power as well. So this is a 10 out of 10. It sits up at the top tier of performance of any locomotives I've reviewed. Appearance and detail is a 9.5 out of 10. Overall, it is absolutely excellent. And really, any of the gripes are a little bit small. The actual shafts of the buffers do appear as silver on this. They should be black, and certainly any photos I've seen of the real-life prototype would have those as black. To be honest, I can live with that. It's a small point. The other one is the actual lights, the marker lights in the forward direction. They are a little bit dim, and that's because the actual LEDs seem to be a little bit recessed in the plastic. So you have to be looking at them head on to really see that they're on. Like I had to figure out that they were actually working at one stage, and you can obviously see when you go head on, you'll see them. So the viewing angle is very tight on them, and I think that's probably because they're a little bit too recessed. So it's a small point, but it just kind of does affect the appearance a little bit when you see it running on the track. And as I said, you might think that those lights actually aren't on when they really are. But overall appearance, livery is top notch, and I've gone through this model looking at it compared to the prototype, and it is spectacularly close. It absolutely is. So well done to Accurascale. They've done an absolutely magnificent job on the appearance. And that also includes the cab area as well, which is highly detailed with nice seating, and also has the lighted panel for the driver as well, which is again really good. Sound is a 9.5 out of 10, which is probably the highest sound score I think I've given any factory fitted sound model, and it is really good. A couple of areas which maybe aren't 100% perfect. The flange squeal is a little bit like somebody scraping their nails across a blackboard. That's kind of what I felt it sounded like, and I actually felt that sound with the Class 70 I reviewed previously as well. And you do need to tune maybe your acceleration setting to optimize the sound at start off when you're starting from a standing start and beginning to move. You get a more accurate sound if you have a higher value on your acceleration. Essentially, you're slowing down the acceleration. But they're minor gripes, and overall this is a very good sound package, and the actual fidelity, the bass, is all very good. And I didn't notice any clipping of the sound, and that can be an issue you'll hear on even some pretty expensive locomotives. You can hear the sound getting clipped, for example, that's overdriving the speaker. With the default sound setting, I didn't see any issues, or hear any issues, I should say. Extras and variants, 9.5 out of 10. Again, it's really, really good. The lighting package, as I said, is excellent, and it's got all the kind of features that you would expect on a locomotive like this, and lots of separately fitted parts, etc. The only gripe is it doesn't have a driver, and I know some people are going to kill me for that, but it's just, I do like to have a pre-fitted driver. I just like to get something out of the box like that. It's actually such a hassle to have to order a driver separately and then fit it. It's like if you can pop down the road to your model shop and get it, maybe that might be fine, but you can't. You have to order it online. You're going to have to pay postage. So it ends up costing like twice the price it should really cost when you factor in postage. The convenience of having a driver out of the box is just really good. So I'm going to put a poll actually in the comments. Would you prefer to see a pre-fitted driver in your locomotives, or do you prefer to go and fit your own, or do you not fit a driver at all? I'll put a poll, and please check that out in the comments and on the community page, and I would be interested in getting your feedback on that. I do like the pre-fitted drivers, I have to say that, and I've had them on all of my earlier Bachmann Class 37s. They stopped putting them in on the more recent models. Why, I don't know. The build quality I'm giving as a 10 out of 10. This is not the same as, say, the Class 55 Deltic, which had some issues with parts falling off. There was issues with the bogie chains. I haven't had any problems like that with this model. This model appears to be quite robust in the hand. All of the detailing seems to be well fitted. So I just think this is the build quality on this is really, really good. Again, I'd be interested with people's feedback in the comments if you have one of these models, what your experience has been with it on the build quality side. Packaging and documentation is excellent. The packaging is a 5 out of 5. The only minor gripe on the documentation is just two things. One was there's no documentation on the fitting of the snowplows. Would it be nice to have just something on that? I do like the sheet for the sound functions. I do like that sheet that they do produce. However, one thing it kind of misses is just an indicator as to what are latched functions and what are not. In most cases, it's pretty obvious which ones are and which ones aren't, and anyone who's had sound models will know that. But there can be a few of those controls that you mightn't be too sure. And certainly if you're new to sound-fitted locomotives, you definitely may not know each of them. So it isn't explicit as to what's a latched on-off function and what is not. So it's a small point. And it's Accurascale aren't the only people. Most of the sound manuals have the same issue. So would like to see that rectified. And I'll say some documentation of fitting the snowplows would be good, given you've got the two options as well. Price value for this I'm giving as 10 out of 10. And it's in the context of the quality and features and capabilities of the model. And obviously the price point as well. At the £170 price, or RRP, this is like £50, £60 cheaper than the full-priced models, diesel models from Hornby, for example, which would be old tooling, wouldn't have anywhere near the same features, and wouldn't be as good runners and wouldn't have things like the stay alive capability, for example. So that's a huge delta. If you compare it to the Bachmann models, again, it does undercut the latest retooled Bachmann Class 37s as well. And it may be not as much of a saving on those, but if you were to go for a deluxe Bachmann model, for example, obviously you would get the rotating fan capability. There is a significant difference. So I really do think the value is really good on these models because they are such good models. You are getting a top class model for this price. And I think for £170, I think it is absolutely well worth that money. So the overall sound score with the sound version is 975. And if you exclude the sound of the price value score, which just gives you the basic model, if you were to go for no sound, and excluding the value score, again, is 973. So that ties with the Deltic score. And actually, I think I overrated the Deltic in my scoring in the review because I did have some subsequent issues with the model afterwards, and I probably would have scored it lower. So this is definitely the highest scoring model I've ever reviewed on this channel. If you go back and let's say look at the Deltic, it is probably a bit overscored because of subsequent issues I did have when I went through all the models I had. So this one is definitely the number one. I did not have any issues on this thing, and I don't think I'm going to have any issues over the foreseeable future either. So this is the highest scoring model, and I think it deserves to be such as well. Okay, so let's get into the final recommendation. So if you've been following this channel, You'll know that I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the earlier Accurascale locomotives. Both were groundbreaking models in their own right, but they did come with some niggly issues that took away some of the gloss and did dampen the ownership experience a little bit. And that wasn't just me, that was lots of other people in the comments would have echoed that. Accurascale's Class 37 is everything those models were, but without any downside whatsoever, certainly in my experience. This model comes with all of the superb detail and features we've come to expect from Accurascale, along with impeccable running performance and best-in-class factory-fitted sound. I did not have a single issue with this model from the moment I took it out of the box, and my whole experience with this model so far has been both hassle-free and extremely enjoyable. This truly is the best Class 37 that I own, and probably one of the best 00 scale models I own, full stop, or have ever owned. Accurascale have clearly learnt from any missteps with their first two locomotives and have produced a superbly featured model at a very attractive price. Accurascale's Class 37 comes not just highly recommended, I would put it in the must-own category if you're a lover of this particular class. It really is that good. So well done, Accurascale. If your Class 55 and Class 92 didn't strike some fear into the competition, then this model most certainly will. More of the same on future models will do nicely indeed, and I've already been tempted to indulge in a second Class 31 based on my experience here. That brings me to my existing Bachmann Class 37 fleet. Well, these are still fine models in their own right, and my Accurascale Class 37 is an addition to the fleet rather than replacing anything. I've already pre-ordered the Accurascale Cullis Rail Class 37 as another addition to the fleet, and we'll look to run that top and tail with my Hornby Cullis Class 37 with the gearing removed and a taillight added to that model. So what are your thoughts on the Accurascale Class 37? If you've purchased one of these models, how has it worked out for you? Did you have any issues with it which I didn't encounter? As always, let me know your feedback in the comments. So thanks for joining for what has been a most pleasurable and trouble-free review. Dapol's Class 59 is next up, and while not quite to the same level as this model, it's still a model I was pretty pleased with, and I'll cover the reasons why in my review. Look forward to seeing you on that one, and in the meantime, take care and happy modelling.